The sky turned red on what should have been a normal Tuesday morning. Commander James Miller stood at the window of Earth Defense Command, his coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips as he watched the impossible unfold before his eyes. Massive ships, each bigger than the largest aircraft carrier ever built, pushed through Earth's atmosphere, their metal hulls glowing from the heat of entry. "Sir, we're getting reports from every major city," Lieutenant Tom said, his voice shaking. "They're everywhere. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, all reporting the same thing." Miller set down his coffee cup, years of military training kicking in. "Get me the president on the line, and someone tell me why our early warning systems didn't pick this up." But before anyone could answer, every screen in the command center lit up with the same message. The text was in perfect English, which somehow made it even more terrifying. Asterisk to the primitive species of Earth. Asterisk. Asterisk the Directorate, representing the superior civilizations of the Galactic Council, hereby claims this solar system. Your rapid technological advancement poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. Surrender now, and you will be permitted to live under our guidance. Resist, and face extinction asterisk. Asterisk, you have 1 hour to respond asterisk. Miller's jaw clenched. "Like hell we will," he muttered, then turned to his staff. "Sound the alarm. Get every fighter jet in the air. I want our missile defense systems online now." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Earth's military forces mobilized with unprecedented speed, but they were facing an enemy beyond their worst nightmares. The alien ships just sat there, waiting, their massive forms blocking out the sun in many cities. When the hour was up, humanity gave its answer. A coordinated missile strike from every nuclear-capable nation on Earth. Thousands of missiles streaked toward the alien vessels. Miller watched the radar screens, holding his breath. The missiles struck their targets and did absolutely nothing. Green shields flickered around the ships, absorbing the impacts like they were nothing more than raindrops. "Impossible," someone whispered. That's when the Directorate began their attack. The alien weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Beams of purple energy cut through military bases like paper. Smaller craft, shaped like arrowheads, descended into cities. Where they passed, all electronic devices simply died. Miller coordinated Earth's defenses as best he could, but it was like fighting a tsunami with a bucket. Fighter jets exploded midair when they got too close to the alien shields. Tanks stopped dead in their tracks as waves of energy washed over them. "Sir," Tom called out, his face pale. "The Pentagon. It's gone. Just gone. There's nothing but a crater." Miller gripped the edge of his command console, knuckles white. All around him, reports of similar destruction poured in. The Chinese military command, destroyed. The Russian Defense Ministry, obliterated. Every major military installation around the world was being systematically wiped out. "New orders, sir?" Tom asked, looking to his commander for hope. Miller stared at the tactical display, watching as more and more of Earth's defenses went dark. In just 3 hours, the most powerful militaries in human history had been reduced to nothing. But he noticed something. The aliens were focusing on military targets, largely avoiding civilian areas. "They want to control us, not destroy us," Miller said, his mind racing. "That means we still have a chance." He turned to his remaining staff. "Send out an emergency broadcast to all surviving military personnel. Tell them to go dark. Abandon the bases. Blend in with the civilian population." "Sir," Tom looked confused. "Are you saying we should surrender?" Miller's eyes hardened. "No, Lieutenant. I'm saying we need to change how we fight. If they want to take Earth, they'll learn why no one has ever successfully occupied our planet. We'll make them bleed for every inch." As if in response to his defiance, the building shook. Purple light began to seep through the windows. "Everyone out. Now," Miller shouted, grabbing essential data drives. "Get to the emergency bunker." They barely made it to the reinforced underground facility before their command center vanished in a flash of purple light. Safe for the moment, Miller looked at the scared faces around him. "This is just the beginning," he said firmly. "They think they've won because they have better weapons, but they don't understand what they've started. Humanity doesn't give up. We adapt. We survive. And when the time is right, we'll show them exactly why they should have left Earth alone." In the darkness of the bunker, surrounded by the remnants of Earth's military command, Commander Miller began planning humanity's resistance. The aliens might have won the first battle, but the war for Earth was far from over. 6 months after the invasion, Dr. Emily Ross stared at the alien device on her makeshift workbench. The underground lab, hidden in an abandoned subway tunnel, hummed with stolen alien power cells. Her small team worked quietly around her, each focused on understanding the enemy's technology. A soft beep from the security system made everyone freeze. They relaxed when Commander Miller's voice came through the speaker, giving the all-clear signal. "Any progress?" Miller asked as he entered the lab, his once pristine uniform now worn and dirty from months of guerrilla warfare. Emily nodded, pushing her glasses up. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the captured alien shield generator. "When we try to activate it, it fails. But it's not broken. Something about human operators causes the failure." "That's not very helpful," Miller said, frowning. "Actually, it is." Emily's eyes lit up with excitement, because it only happens with human operators. When we use remote controls, it works perfectly. There's something about human biology that disrupts their tech. Before Miller could respond, Tom burst into the lab. "Commander, you need to see this." They followed him to the communication room, where a small TV showed news footage. The directorate was holding a public demonstration in Times Square. Alien soldiers stood in formation while their general, a tall figure they knew as Rex, spoke to the cameras. "Earth's protection under the directorate brings great benefits," Rex announced, his translated voice smooth and confident. "Already, we have eliminated disease in compliant sectors. Those who accept our guidance prosper, those who resist." The camera panned to show captured resistance fighters being marched onto a stage. Miller's fists clenched. "Turn it off." "No, wait." Emily grabbed his arm. "Look at their shields." The alien soldiers were surrounded by a faint green glow, their personal shield generators. But as the human prisoners were marched past, the shields flickered slightly. "There," Emily pointed excitedly. "That's what I've been trying to tell you. Something about us interferes with their technology. We just need to figure out what and amplify it." Miller studied the screen thoughtfully. "How long until you can weaponize this?" "Give me 2 weeks," Emily said. "But I'll need more test subjects. Volunteers to help me understand what causes the interference." "You'll have them," Miller promised. He turned to Tom. "Get messages to all resistance cells. Tell them we need their best and brightest. Scientists, engineers, anyone who might help." Over the next 2 weeks, the underground lab buzzed with activity. Volunteers came and went, each tested against various pieces of alien tech. Emily and her team worked around the clock, measuring everything from body temperature to brainwave patterns. The breakthrough came at 3 a.m. on a Sunday. Emily had fallen asleep at her workbench when one of her instruments started beeping wildly. "It's the brainwaves," she shouted, startling awake. "Everyone, get in here." Her team rushed in as she pointed to the readings. Human brainwave patterns create a unique interference field. The aliens' neural structure is completely different. That's why their tech doesn't work right around us. If we can amplify this, we can shut down their shields, Miller finished, having arrived during the commotion. "How fast can you build something to test this?" Emily grinned. "Already did. Watch this." She pulled out a small device, about the size of a phone. Setting up a captured shield generator, she activated it. The familiar green barrier appeared. Then she turned on her device. The shield flickered and died. The lab erupted in cheers. For the first time since the invasion, They had a real weapon against the Directorate. How many of these can you make? Miller asked, examining the device. With the right parts, hundreds, Emily replied. Maybe thousands. And that's just the beginning. Now that we understand the principle, we can adapt it to target their weapons, their ships, maybe even their communication systems. Miller smiled, the first real smile anyone had seen from him in months. Get to work. I'll contact our cells around the world. It's time humanity showed the Directorate why they should have never come to Earth. As the lab burst into action, Emily caught Miller's arm. Commander, there's something else. The readings suggest our brainwaves are unusually strong compared to other species. I don't think the Directorate knows what they're dealing with. Good, Miller said grimly. Let's keep it that way until it's too late for them to do anything about it. The Resistance had found its weapon. Now, they just had to use it. 1 year into the occupation, the underground facility had transformed from a makeshift lab into a bustling command center. Maps covered the walls, marking Directorate strongholds and resistance cells across the globe. In the main lab, Dr. Emily Ross watched as volunteers tested the latest version of her brainwave amplifier. Again, she commanded, and 20 people focused their thoughts on the alien shield generator in the center of the room. The device in front of each volunteer hummed softly, and the shield not only collapsed, but the generator itself sparked and died. Perfect, Emily smiled. They're not just disrupting the shields anymore. They're burning out the hardware. Commander Miller walked in just as they finished. He looked different now, harder but more confident. Good timing. Our scouts report the Directorate is planning something big. They're gathering troops in all major cities. Let them, Emily said, holding up one of the devices. The Mark II amplifiers are ready. One person can now take down their shields at twice the distance. And look at this. She pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared above the device. We reversed their own tech. These will let our forces see through walls, just like they do. Miller picked up one of the amplifiers, studying it. How many? 5,000 ready to go. Another 10,000 in production. We're using their own manufacturing systems against them. They have no idea their automated factories are producing weapons to fight them. Miller nodded approvingly. The Resistance in Berlin got into their computer systems last week. The Directorate still thinks our attacks are just lucky hits. They haven't figured out what we can do to their tech. A young technician rushed in. Commander, Doctor, you need to see this. They followed him to the communications room. On multiple screens, General Rex was making another announcement. But this time, he looked angry. The primitive resistance must end, Rex declared. We have been patient. We have been merciful. But now, he gestured, and the camera showed massive new ships entering Earth's atmosphere. The Directorate's full military might has arrived. In 1 week, we will begin systematic purging of all resistance sectors. Submit now or face extinction. The room fell silent. The new ships were enormous, making the invasion fleet look small in comparison. They're scared, Emily said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. Think about it, she continued. Why bring in such overwhelming force against primitives if they weren't worried? They know something's wrong with their tech, but they don't know what. So they're trying to crush us before they find out. Miller's eyes lit up with understanding, and they just gave us a week to prepare. He turned to his communications team. Get me every resistance cell leader. Now. Over the next hour, Miller laid out his plan to the resistance leaders around the world. Emily watched in amazement as the commander she'd first met a year ago coordinated what would become humanity's greatest counterattack. The Directorate thinks size and power will win, Miller told the assembled leaders through secure channels. But every big ship they bring is just a bigger target for our amplifiers. They've gathered their forces in central locations, exactly where we want them. What about civilian casualties? Someone asked. The amplifiers don't affect human tech. Emily jumped in. Once their shields go down, their ships will crash exactly where we want them to. We can control this. Miller nodded. In 6 days, every resistance cell will receive their final positions and targets. On day 7, when they're expecting our surrender, we strike. Every major directorate installation, every ship, every command center, all at once. And after? Another voice asked. After, Miller smiled grimly, we show them why Earth has never been successfully conquered. Dr. Ross. Emily stepped forward. The Mark IV amplifiers are almost ready. They won't just disable their tech. They'll let us take control of it. Imagine their own ships, their own weapons, turned against them. The plans were set. Around the world, resistance fighters began moving into position. The Directorate's ultimatum had given humanity exactly what it needed: time to prepare, and the enemy gathered in perfect striking positions. In the lab, Emily put the finishing touches on the Mark IV prototype. Next to her, Miller studied the citywide tactical display. 1 week, he said quietly. 1 week, and Earth fights back. Dawn broke over New York City as the Directorate's deadline arrived. General Rex stood on the observation deck of his command ship, watching the sunrise with what passed for a smile on his alien face. Below him, thousands of troops and hundreds of ships waited to begin their systematic purge of human resistance. Sir, his second-in-command approached. All forces report ready. Should we begin the attack? Rex raised his hand to give the order, but something caught his eye. A group of humans was walking openly down the street toward their position. Not running, not hiding. Walking. Interesting, Rex mused. It seems some wished to surrender. Put them on screen. The view screen magnified the approaching humans. In front walked Commander Miller himself, with Dr. Ross beside him. Both carried small devices in their hands. Brave but foolish, Rex said. Take them. Troops moved to surround the humans, shield generators humming. Miller and Ross stopped walking. They looked at each other, nodded, and raised their devices. That's when everything went wrong for the Directorate. The soldiers' shields didn't just fail. They exploded in bursts of green energy. Their weapons died in their hands. And behind Miller and Ross, thousands of resistance fighters emerged from buildings and sewers, each carrying a Mark II amplifier. Rex's ship suddenly rocked violently. Warning signals blared as system after system began to fail. What's happening? He demanded. Our shields, they're gone. All ships reporting total shield failure. Weapon systems offline. Around the world, at exactly the same moment, the scene repeated itself. In London, Paris, Tokyo, Moscow, and every other occupied city, resistance fighters activated their amplifiers. The Directorate's seemingly invincible technology crumbled before the power of human brainwaves, amplified 1,000-fold. Miller watched as the massive ships began to drift, their anti-gravity systems failing. Phase 2, he commanded into his radio. Emily activated her Mark IV prototype. Across the city, other resistance members did the same. This time, the alien ships didn't just lose power. Their systems came back online under human control. Impossible, Rex roared as his own ship turned against his commands. Through the view screen, he watched in horror as human resistance fighters entered their vessels with ease, their amplifiers turning million-dollar security systems into useless light shows. In the streets, the remaining Directorate forces found themselves surrounded by their own automated defense turrets, now under human control. Their combat suits, designed to enhance their strength, locked them in place. Surrender. Miller's voice boomed through the captured communication systems. Your shields are down, your weapons are ours, and your ships are under our control. It's over. From his failing command ship, Rex watched the unthinkable unfold. The most powerful invasion force ever assembled was being defeated by the very primitives they had come to subjugate. Reports flooded in from around the globe. New Delhi fallen, Sydney captured, Cairo under human control. Every major Directorate installation was either under attack or already captured. Sir, his second-in-command's voice shook. The humans, They're inside our network. They're downloading everything. Our tactical data, our communication codes, our shield frequencies. They'll know all our weaknesses. Rex slammed his fist down. Send word to the Council. We need reinforcements. We can't, sir. Communications are being blocked. Wait, they're not blocked. They're being redirected. The humans, they're broadcasting our defeat to the entire Council. In the street below, Miller and Ross watched as the last of the Directorate's ground forces surrendered. The massive ships hung motionless in the air, their crews captured or in custody. Start downloading everything, Miller ordered his tech teams. I want every piece of Directorate data secured before they can delete it. Emily checked her readings. The Mark IVs are working better than we hoped. We now have control of their entire Earth-based network. And she smiled. We just got access to their FTL communication systems. The whole galaxy is watching this. Miller nodded with grim satisfaction. Good. Let them watch. Let them all see what happens when you underestimate humanity. Above them, the morning sun shone on the captured Directorate ships, their once threatening presence now a monument to humanity's first victory. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council erupted in chaos. Hundreds of alien representatives from different species shouted and argued as the footage from Earth played on the massive screens above them. They watched in disbelief as humanity's resistance dismantled the Directorate's most powerful invasion fleet like it was made of toys. Elder Max, one of the Council's most respected members, stood at the central podium. Unlike many of his fellow Council members, he had opposed the invasion of Earth from the start. Now, he watched with quiet satisfaction as the Directorate's representatives squirmed in their seats. The evidence is clear, Max announced, his translated voice cutting through the noise. The Directorate's unsanctioned invasion of Earth has resulted in a military disaster. Worse, they have exposed advanced technology to a species that can not only understand it but turn it against us. On one of the screens, Dr. Ross could be seen explaining to captured Directorate officers how human brainwaves had disrupted their technology. The aliens' expressions of shock were clear even through their inhuman features. Impossible. The Directorate's chief ambassador slammed his appendage on his desk. These primitives must have had help. Someone else gave them this technology. Are you suggesting, Max replied calmly, that another Council member violated our laws to aid Earth? Or perhaps you're trying to hide the fact that humans developed this capability entirely on their own. More footage played. Resistance fighters using captured ships, controlling alien weapons, and accessing the Directorate's secure networks. The Council chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. We have an even bigger problem. A representative from the Science Guild spoke up. Our analysis shows that humans have an unusually powerful neural structure. Their brainwave patterns are far more complex than any species we've encountered. If they can affect our technology this way, then no Directorate system is safe, Max finished. And now, thanks to your invasion, they have access to our most advanced technology and the knowledge of how vulnerable we are to their abilities. The Directorate's ambassador turned a pale shade of green. We must launch a full-scale attack. Use our remaining fleets to destroy them before. Before what? A new voice interrupted. Everyone turned to see Commander Miller and Dr. Ross walking into the Council chamber, escorted by Max's security team. They had used the captured FTL technology to reach the Council homeworld. The chamber fell silent. Many representatives had never seen a human in person before. Miller and Ross walked to the center of the hall, their steps echoing in the silence. Before we share our discoveries with others who oppose Directorate control, Miller asked, before we teach other species how to resist your technology, or before you have to admit that you attacked us without Council approval because you were afraid. Afraid of primitives. The ambassador scoffed, but his voice wavered. Yes, afraid. Ross stepped forward, holding up one of her devices. Your own data proves it. Your scientists predicted humanity's potential. We advance faster than any species you've encountered. We adapt. We innovate. And now, she pressed a button, and every piece of Directorate technology in the chamber shut down. We understand your weaknesses. Panic rippled through the council. Security teams reached for weapons that no longer worked. Transport systems failed. Even the universal translators flickered. Enough. Max's voice cut through the chaos. Dr. Ross, please restore our systems. Ross complied with a small smile. The technology came back online instantly. The humans have proven their point. Max addressed the council. The Directorate launched an illegal invasion, and it has backfired spectacularly. Now we must deal with the consequences. Miller stepped forward. Earth demands the immediate withdrawal of all Directorate forces. We also want reparations for the damage caused by this illegal invasion. And if we refuse, the ambassador asked weakly, then we'll share our technology with every world under Directorate control. Ross replied, how long do you think your empire will last when everyone can shut down your ships with the push of a button? The council erupted in discussion again, but this time the tone was different. Representatives from various worlds began calling for investigations into other Directorate actions. Some openly offered alliance with Earth. Max watched it all with a small smile. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted, and he had a feeling things would never be the same again. The next day, the council chamber was packed for what many were calling the most important session in galactic history. Commander Miller and Dr. Ross stood at the center, surrounded by representatives from 1,000 worlds. Behind them, a holographic display showed Earth, now free of Directorate ships. Let us be clear, Miller began, his voice firm. Earth is not interested in revenge. We want justice. Dr. Ross activated a series of holograms, showing the destruction caused by the invasion. The Directorate attacked us without provocation, caused massive damage to our cities, and killed thousands of our people, all because they feared what we might become. The Directorate's ambassador shifted uncomfortably in his seat. We acted to protect galactic stability. You acted to protect your own power. Miller cut him off. Your own files prove it. Dr. Ross. Ross pressed a button on her device. The chamber's screens filled with internal Directorate messages, showing their real motives. These documents reveal that the Directorate knew about humanity's neural potential years ago. They knew we could naturally disrupt their technology. The invasion wasn't about stability. It was about eliminating a threat to their control of advanced technology. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Elder Max stood up. What are Earth's demands? Miller nodded to Ross, who projected a new set of images. First, immediate withdrawal of all Directorate forces from the solar system. Second, full reparations for the damage caused by the invasion. Third, transfer of medical and educational technology to help rebuild what was destroyed. The demand seemed reasonable to many council members, but the Directorate's ambassador jumped up. This is extortion. You can't. We're not finished. Miller's voice grew harder. Fourth, the Directorate will face a full investigation by the Council for their illegal actions. Fifth, Earth will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and protections that entails. The chamber exploded in debate. Some species supported the demands, while others feared giving humans too much power. The Directorate's representatives huddled together, whispering urgently. And if these demands are not met? The ambassador asked, trying to sound confident. Ross smiled and held up a data crystal. Then we release complete technical specifications showing how to build anti-Directorate weapons. Every world under their control would have the means to resist. Their entire empire would collapse in weeks. You wouldn't dare. The ambassador's translator barely kept up with his frightened squeal. The chaos. The chaos you caused by invading us. Miller stepped forward. We don't want to destroy the Directorate. We don't want to destabilize the galaxy. But we will not allow anyone to threaten Earth again. Elder Max raised his hands for silence. The humans' terms are fair, considering the circumstances. They seek recognition and reparation, not domination. He turned to Miller and Ross. But the Council needs assurance that Earth won't use its unique abilities to threaten others. Agreed. Ross nodded. She activated one final hologram, showing plans for a new Earth-based organization. We propose creating the Earth Defense and Technology Exchange. We'll share our defensive innovations with peaceful worlds while helping protect less advanced species from the kind of aggression we faced. Furthermore, Miller added, we'll help upgrade Council technology to be more resistant to neural interference, not to make it harmful to humans, but to prevent accidental disruptions as our species interact more. The chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. Earth wasn't just demanding recognition. They were offering to become peacekeepers, helping maintain the very stability the Directorate had accused them of threatening. The Council voted overwhelmingly to accept Earth's terms. Even the Directorate representatives, seeing no alternative, agreed to the conditions. As the session ended, Elder Max approached Miller and Ross. "You handled that perfectly," he said quietly. "The Directorate feared you would seek revenge. Instead, you've shown wisdom they never expected from primitives." Miller looked out at the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds. "Humanity has a lot to learn about the galaxy," he said. "But it seems the galaxy has something to learn about humanity too." Ross checked her devices one last time. "The Directorate ships are already leaving Earth's orbit. Should we head home and give everyone the good news?" "Not yet," Miller smiled. "First, let's make sure those reparations actually get paid. Something tells me we're going to need them for what comes next." The age of Earth's isolation was over. The time of humanity's rise had begun. 3 months after the Council meeting, Earth had changed more than anyone could have imagined. The sun rose over New York City, glinting off the newly constructed Galactic Embassy, a towering structure that merged human architecture with alien technology. Where Directorate warships once loomed threateningly, peaceful trading vessels now came and went. Commander Miller stood at the embassy's observation deck, watching ships from a dozen different species dock at the new spaceport. Next to him, Dr. Ross was explaining Earth's neural interface technology to a group of alien scientists who listened with a mixture of fear and admiration. "It's still hard to believe," Miller said as the scientists left. "A year ago, we were fighting for survival. Now we're teaching alien civilizations how to improve their technology. That's because we did something they never expected," Ross replied, checking the data on her tablet. "We turned their weapons into tools for peace." The tablet showed reports from around the world. Directorate Medical Technology, freely shared as part of the reparations, had cured diseases that once seemed hopeless. Their educational systems, modified for human use, were revolutionizing how people learned. The same ships that once attacked Earth now carried human diplomats to distant worlds. "Commander Miller, Dr. Ross." Lieutenant Tom hurried in, looking more polished in his new diplomatic corps uniform. "The Council representatives have arrived for the ceremony." They took the gravity lift down to the main hall, where Elder Max waited with a delegation of Council members. Even General Rex was there, though he looked much less imposing without his combat armor. "The final Directorate reparation payments have been processed," Max announced, "and Earth's new status as a full Council member is now official." He handed Miller a small crystalline device. "This grants Earth access to all Council databases and voting rights in all matters of galactic law." Rex stepped forward awkwardly. "We were wrong about humans," he admitted. "We thought your rapid advancement was a threat. Instead, your innovations have already improved our shield technology beyond what we thought possible." "That's the difference between our species, General," Ross said kindly. "You saw technology as a weapon to control others. We see it as a tool to help everyone grow." The ceremony that followed was broadcast across Earth and to every Council world. Humans and aliens mingled freely in the Grand Hall, sharing stories and ideas. In one corner, a group of children taught alien visitors to play basketball. In another, alien merchants demonstrated harmless versions of their technology to eager human entrepreneurs. Miller watched it all with satisfaction until Tom approached again. "Sir, the President wants to know if you'll accept the position of Earth's first galactic ambassador." Me? Miller looked surprised. I'm a soldier, not a diplomat. That's exactly why it should be you, Ross interrupted. You fought when we had to fight, but you chose peace when we had the power to seek revenge. That's the message Earth wants to send to the galaxy. Before Miller could respond, alarms began blaring. Everyone tensed, but Ross quickly checked her devices and laughed. Don't worry, she announced to the startled crowd. That's just the detection system picking up our first faster-than-light ship returning from its test flight. The assembly moved to the windows, watching as a sleek vessel of human design emerged from FTL travel. It combined Earth's neural interface technology with modified directorate systems, creating something entirely new. Beautiful, isn't it? Elder Max said, standing beside Miller. The first of many, I expect. Your species does nothing slowly. No, Miller agreed, thinking about how far they'd come. When humanity commits to something, we give it everything we have. As if to emphasize his point, more ships appeared in the sky, vessels from dozens of council worlds arriving for trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. Earth's fierce retaliation against invasion had led not to destruction, but to an unprecedented period of growth and cooperation. So, about that ambassador position, Ross nudged Miller, grinning. Miller watched as human and alien children played together in the embassy garden below. Where there had been war, there was now peace. Where there had been fear, there was now friendship. And where humanity had once faced extinction, they now faced a future filled with infinite possibilities. Tell the president I accept, he said finally. After all, someone needs to make sure the galaxy remembers, never underestimate humanity. The sun set on a changed Earth, its light reflecting off ships from 1,000 worlds. Humanity had not just survived. They had thrived, and their journey was just beginning.